Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for another edition, Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. First, we have here for the westerns to sit in the valley, there's a flood advisory still out for the Ottenweller River, which is at moderate flood stage, but slowly coming down now. And that flood advisory due to end at 10:45 this evening, and then should improve from there on. Otherwise, moving on to the fire danger chart here, quite an extensive area of high fire danger from the upper Yukon Valley into the central interior, back across the central and upper Tanana Valley areas with, looks like the White Mountains here to the north, a little less under the high fire danger zone. A couple of spots here in the Copper River Basin, not very big at all, in fact smaller than what I have drawn there. And then some extreme fire danger up there in the upper Yukon Valley along the Porcupine River, and a hint of that over the central Tanana Valley around, say, somewhere around the greater Fairbanks area. And moving on to satellite imagery, clouds here, southern Alaska, weak low dissipating as it comes up toward the Kenai Peninsula. That brought about 2/3 of an inch of rain today on the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Not much falling at Seward, though, about 2/10 of an inch in Whittier and Portage, with only 1/100 of an inch falling today at Cordova, with temperatures rising lower to mid-80s. That triggered afternoon thunderstorms here over the eastern interior area, and clouds are building with showers starting to pop up in this area, cloudiness, and then some rainfall through here brought, with that batch of clouds, brought 4/10 of an inch of precipitation to Bethel during the day today. Iliamna there on the trailing edge of that cloud band picked up about a 1/2 an inch of rain during the same time period. Otherwise, much lighter amounts everywhere else, a few hundredths of an inch or nothing at all. Generally dry day here along the southeast coast, but clouds moving in, weak trough off the coast, made for a mostly cloudy day in some areas that are keeping the temperatures down. Drizzle reported at Sitka with some low clouds out along the coastline there, and fog at Yakutat lifted about midday today with better conditions. That same pattern up along the Arctic coast as well. Low clouds and fog to start with, kind of improving in the afternoon, but pretty nice across the north slope into the Brooks Range. Then you hit the clouds here. Not a lot of precip with these clouds. This area showers wrapping back down around that 1,002 millibar low there off the Yukon Delta coast. And gusts of 35 miles an hour were observed at Nome today in the afternoon. Kind of a windy day there across portions of the Seward Peninsula following those showers as they moved down across St. Lawrence Island in conjunction with this low. That produced showers, unsettled, cool conditions here across all the southwest interior. A few breaks over Bristol Bay. Dry day for Kodiak Island with quite a few clouds around, but generally dry with the moisture up to the north there, scattered across southern Cook Inlet. Again, pretty good rain there toward Iliamna and the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, this weakening trough coming northward. And for tonight, that will continue to produce scattered showers here along the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula. Showers could be scattered, isolated across south central Alaska, Copper River Basin, and also across the Panhandle, that weakening front, or the trough moving in. Look for mostly cloudy skies with at least a few showers around from Dixon Entrance all the way up to Lynn Canal. Evening thunderstorms dissipating, slowly dissipating. Some of those showers could be on the moderate to maybe even briefly heavy side there up over the eastern interior here to the upper Yukon Valley. Drier back to the northwest with more clearing. Mostly cloudy, partly to mostly. Kuskokwim Valley looks pretty good, but maybe a few breaks there over the Kuskokwim Delta with some isolated showers. That same pattern, cloudy, cool, occasional fog, drizzle, and light rain here out over the Bering Sea with general area of low pressure or troughiness here extending southward from that 1,003 millibar low. And then for tomorrow, that kind of pulls back a little bit to the west, and we have a trough lining up south of that, south-southeast in toward just east of Atka. So that'll keep it cloudy with at least areas of showers here with that trough, or low clouds, fog, and drizzle. St. Matthew Island across the Pribilofs down to mostly the Bering Sea side, eastern Aleutians, and possibly as far west as Atka. Higher pressure should be pretty good out west. And then afternoon showers again developing here to a lesser extent along the North Gulf Coast. I call those isolated, really. Afternoon best chance here over the interior, over the higher terrain. And over the interior, any one of those showers could develop into an isolated thunderstorm or two from the Koyukuk, Upper Yukon Valley areas. And Panhandle looking a little better, a little more in the way of sunshine tomorrow with just isolated showers possible in the afternoon. But still a lot of clouds along the coast. And it'll be kind of a partly to mostly day with more sunshine than what you saw today, probably, hopefully. Then the next day, rain moves into Prince of Wales Island, across southern Alaska, or southern southeast Alaska, with that next front in the afternoon. Should stay partly mostly sunny to the north. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast, partly mostly sunny. Afternoon showers, isolated thunderstorms again developing here over southern Alaska. Back a little bit to the northwest, Kuskokwim Valley, especially along the western Alaska Range, real weak trough right through here. That'll kick off some showers in the afternoon after a partly sunny start to the day. And that extends down to Kodiak Island. That's mostly isolated showers over the mountainous terrain. So basically dry, high pressure over the Yukon Delta, or actually over Norton Sound, the center, but covering much of the western interior. That'll make for a partly and a mostly sunny day. Maybe some low clouds and fog persisting along the coast. And then showers up here over the Noatak Valley with low clouds, fog, and drizzle over the Chukchi Sea. And area showers along the North Slope, Brooks Range area, all the way out to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast in spite of that high pressure area at the surface. Weak trough out here over the Bering Sea continues a shower threat for the Pribilof Islands mainly. Really isolated. Look for some more clearing over Atka, or from east of Atka to the Fox Islands, Dutch Harbor. Isolated showers possible for the Alaska Peninsula. Next system spreading a little bit of an increase in the winds and better chance for some rain pushing in toward Adak and extending westward during the afternoon on Saturday. Low temperatures tonight, pretty mild up here over the northeast interior, just barely getting below 60 degrees there for Yukon. Otherwise, mid to upper 50s in this area, the lower 50s Tanana Valley, cooling into the upper 40s out west. Lower 40s St. Lawrence Island to the Pribilofs along the southwest coast, into the Aleutians, and Panhandle, lower to mid 50s. Highs tomorrow, upper 30s, lower 40s along the Arctic coast, probably in the 50s for the North Slope, and 60s through the Brooks Range. Cooler over the eastern interior, looks considerably cooler in these forecasts from what you saw today. Upper 60s to lower 70s, and 50s to mid 60s here, southern Alaska. Lower to mid 60s for the southeast coast, and 40s out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, with 50s, Bristol Bay, right on up across Seward Peninsula to Kotzebue. And then the lows Saturday morning, looks like everyone's staying above freezing. Lower 30s, lower to mid for the Arctic coast, lower 50s upper Yukon Valley, otherwise 40s to lower 50s here across just about all of interior Alaska, lower to mid 40s for the peninsula, lower 40s for the Aleutians, and 40s to lower 50s for the southeast coast, which will warm into the lower 60s again in the afternoon on Saturday. Upper 60s to lower to mid 70s for the eastern interior, lower 40s for the Arctic coast, highs in the lower 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, maybe the mid 60s for the Susitna Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic here showing mostly VFR here over the interior, some marginal VFR there, White Mountains, North Fairbanks, and looks like northern Susitna Valley, back to the Alaska Range, right over the eastern Copper River Basin a little bit. IFR here, eastern, or actually the far eastern North Gulf Coast, Yakutat down to say Elfin Cove, otherwise mostly VFR in the Panhandle. IFR along the southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island, Pribilofs, back to the western central Aleutians in the afternoon. Really becomes widespread out there over the Bering Sea, all the way to Atka, marginal VFR in Nikolsky up to the Alaska Peninsula, some marginal VFR over northeast Bristol Bay. VFR here across southern Alaska, except on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Some IFR right around Montague Island, and that's about it. They're maybe trying to get in toward the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, otherwise marginal here, Prince William Sound, over to Elfin Cove, and mostly VFR for the Panhandle. Narrow strip of marginal VFR, the patch of IFR here, say from Indian Mountain or so, or actually a little farther north than that, Koyukuk Valley over to maybe Ambler. VFR North Slope on out to the Arctic coast. And for Saturday morning, IFR here along the Brooks Range, IFR eastern and central Beaufort Sea coast, VFR Western North Slope, IFR for the Bering Sea, Pribilof Central Aleutians right up to the southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island, and IFR here, Gulf of Alaska, looks like mostly offshore, still marginal there, Western Alaska Range, Barren Islands, Gulf of Alaska, marginal VFR right along the coastline of the Panhandle, which in the afternoon may push in, at least that's what the forecast is. May see some marginal VFR in across Prince of Wales Island there, back up toward Port Alexander to about Sitka. Otherwise, VFR, Panhandle, all of the interior up to the Brooks Range. Then you hit the marginal stuff again, then back into the VFR for the North Slope. And looking pretty good here for Bristol Bay. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR. Southern approach, though, marginal becoming IFR in the afternoon with more moisture slipping on up from the south. That same trend also good for Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, mostly at times, and rainy. Same forecast, occasionally marginal. And for windy, looks pretty good there. VFR, could be some marginal VFR at times on the southern approach. Otherwise, looking pretty good. Isabel, marginal VFR southern entrance, otherwise VFR. And Mentasta, I think it'll be a VFR kind of day. It'll be clouds to be sure around, but nothing that would make it marginal, hopefully. And for Tanita, VFR. Portage, IFR becoming marginal, so look for a little bit of an improving trend into the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR trending toward VFR, the way it looks at this point in time into the later afternoon. Freezing levels 4,000 feet here out over the Bering Sea, south of the Alaska Peninsula, and kind of a cold pool here into the Gulf. Upper level ridging coming across Canada into the north central interior. So we've got 8 to 10,000 foot freezing levels there with that upper ridging, 8 to 10 across the Panhandle. Icing, most significant area will be up here. Could be some thunderstorms also developing there along the Brooks Range, but just south of there from upper Yukon Valley, Porcupine River, across the Koyukuk, down across Kobuk Valley, probably out to Kotzebue. Look for light to isolated moderate with areas of actually considerable moderate rime icing of about 4,000 feet. Areas of icing possible, mixed or rime or mixed mixed icing here, let's call it, for the southwest interior of the Alaska Range, northern Sitna Valley, and a couple of patches possible here along the North Gulf Coast. And the jet stream trough here, Bering Sea southward, that's holding the strong jet here down to the south, kind of splits right here, 100 knots into the west coast there. Weak southerly flow, high pressure ridging into the interior, the other jet farther to the north, so not a lot going on jet stream wise. 9,000 feet, pretty light winds as well. Westerly 10 in the Panhandle, 15 to 20 over the interior, especially along the Alaska Range, 5 to 10 up north, 20 along the coast here, to 20 over the Pribilofs, and maybe up to 30 knots there for the central Aleutians. At 3,000 feet, 20 to 25 there, central Aleutians, really light out towards Shimia, light for the Fox Islands, Kodiak, ridging right through here, so pretty light winds, westerlies 10 to 15 into the Panhandle. Light winds up north, could be a band of westerlies here, 20 to 25 through the east central interior. And turbulence-wise, not a whole lot to talk about. Central Aleutians maybe, possibly here over the central mountains, and Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay. I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the Limmendisk Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space, around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time, compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Again, over the last several days, this area has kind of shifted southward out here a little bit, but still a good portion of the Chukchi Sea, sea ice free. Really not a lot of change coming up here over the next 4 or 5 days expected there, and stay pretty iced in central eastern Beaufort Sea coastline and offshore. Winds west 15 on the north coast tomorrow, 6-foot seas. Turn northwest at 15 with 5-foot seas for the south coast. Northwest 20 Clarence Strait, about 15 same direction for Stevens Passage. Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay south 25 knots, seas 5 feet. Outlook for Saturday. Light and variable winds up here in the north or eastern North Gulf Coast, 5 to 10 knots. North 10 knots become easterly at 20. That next system in the afternoon approaching the coast here. So these winds kicking up to 25 knots in the afternoon on the south coast from the southeast. So small craft advisories there off the coast of Prince of Wales Island on Saturday. South winds 10 knots. Central southern inside waters. Lynn Canal south at 20. Prince William Sound southeast at 10, southwest 15 knots, North Gulf Coast to the Barren Islands south 20. For Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet, southwest 15, northern Cook Inlet. Saturday, southwest 10 knots for Cook Inlet all the way down to Kamishak Bay, as well as the Barren Islands. Light 10-knot winds here for the North Gulf Coast and light variable to northwest breezes for Prince William Sound at 10 knots with seas pretty slight down to 2 feet or less. Shelikof Strait, southwest 20 at 4-foot seas tomorrow, 15 knots there east side of Kodiak. Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, 10 knots from the southwest with 3 to 4-foot seas here, even on the Pacific side. And the Bering Sea side, 10 to 15 out of the southwest with 2 to 3-foot seas. Saturday, southeast at 10 for Bristol Bay, all the way down here along the Bering Sea side of the peninsula with 1 to 3-foot seas. So staying light, southwest 15. That's about it as far as that'll be the strongest winds from Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, and then southeast 10 knots, Shelikof Strait here down to southwest of Sitkinak, southwest 10 on the east side of Kodiak with 3-foot seas. Fox Islands, west-southwest at 15 with seas 3 to 5 feet, west 15 for the Adak-Atka area. Western Aleutians also west at 15, seas all 4 to 5 feet. Then small cat advisories enter the picture. That next front approaching the western Aleutians there with southeast, east-southeasterlies coming up to 25 knots. Southerlies increasing 20 to 25, and that's about it for the central Aleutians, 4 to 6-foot seas. 15 knots out of the south and southwest. here for the Fox Islands, with those seas staying around 4 to 5 feet. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, we've got southwest winds at 15 into Kuskokwim Bay, 3-foot sea. South at 15 on the north side of Nunivak Island, turn southeast at 15 for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories, west 25, 6-foot sea, St. Matthew Island, light northwest at 10 for the Pribilofs. And even lighter the next day, or still 10 knots, but southerly there, it seas down to 3 feet, St. Paul, St. George area, south 15 along the coast, southeast 20 for St. Matthew Island, southeast 15, St. Lawrence Island with 5-foot seas, and 5-knot winds there for Norton Sound, so no wind for Norton Sound, really laying down. Northeast at 10 here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light northeast at 5, central coast picking up to 15 knots, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, 20 knots out of the northeast, south of Cape Thompson, south 20 with 5-foot seas. And then south winds 20 knots from the Bering Strait, say Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, 3-foot seas. Southwest 10 on the west coast, staying light for the central coast, and east-northeast at 10 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, again, the evening thunderstorms in diminishing mode here throughout the night, with some of those showers on the moderate to heavy side, especially in this area right up through here. And scattered showers, mostly cloudy skies all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. Mostly cloudy, scattered showers at the Panhandle with light winds. Showery, unsettled, cool, occasionally foggy, drizzly, kind of damp out here over the Bering Sea, with this area of low pressure persisting there in the northern Bering and the trough extending to the south. And then for tomorrow, showers in the afternoon. Again, a little more in the way of cloudiness here over the eastern interior, and shower activity keeping the temperatures down from what you saw today. But still, any one of those showers could develop into a thunderstorm, but not, they'd be no more than probably isolated to widely scattered. Chance of showers northern Panhandle, otherwise more sunshine than what you saw today, and no change in the Bering Sea, except for on Saturday, that next system approaching the western Aleutians and the next system approaching the southern Panhandle with some rain in the afternoon. That's a look at the weather. Thank you so much for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.